let me introduce you to our panelists. We have from India, Secretary for the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Shobhan Pattanayak. Mr. Pattanayak, please do come and join us. Where are you? Nice. Make yourself comfortable.
I think I've been asked to sit here.
Wonderful. From the Philippines, from the Asian Development Bank, we have Vice President, Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development, Bambang Susantono. Hi, Bambang. Do sit down. From Brazil, the other side of the room, let me introduce you to Rosangela Ferreira Moura, who is the State Secretary of Working Women of the Federation of Smallholder Farmers and Agriculture Workers from the state of Ceará. Please do make yourself comfortable. And Rosangela is going to be talking in Portuguese, so you might want to put on your headsets, those who need the use of the translations.
Yes.
From the Women's World Banking Organization, we have the CEO, the Chief Operating Officer, Tom Jones. Tom, to talk to us about women and other issues. And from right here in IFAD in Rome, Adolfo Brizzi, Director Policy and Technical Advisory Division. Adolfo. So the first question I'm going to ask all of you is to put you on the spot and say, very briefly, tell me your reactions to what we were hearing from Homi Karas. He was sounding pretty fed up. He was sounding like he wanted to put a rocket under everyone in this room. What do you think we need to do next? Secretary Pattanayak.
Well, I must congratulate Homi for having come straight to the subject. We all are quite impatient. We have been speaking about this for the last so many years. And I remember the World Food Summit, we have been speaking about it. We had the MDGs, we are going to have the SDGs, but less than 15 years is there for us to achieve. Developing countries like India are also equally impatient, but we have identified the gray areas, and we are now targeting these very areas as to how we can make transformative changes. At this stage, I would like to just bring it to the knowledge of the audience that we launched a national program on inclusive finance, and it was a game changer. As on date, more than 266 million people have got access to bank, and with zero balance. Why were the people discriminated by the banks? Because there was a certain minimum balance which has to be put. They didn't have assets to give the collateral, as Homi put it. But this has all been done away. And today, with zero balance, you have access to credit, you can deposit money, you can remit your money, you can get credit, and the whole array of financial services are today available to the poor and needy, and mostly the agriculturist. I'll speak later on this.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for getting us going. So, Bambang Susantono, can I ask you for your reaction to what we just heard from Homi Karas, that you need to accelerate the efforts in such a way that you're doubling, trebling, I think at one point he even said 10-fold increase. Is this realistic?
I think I joined first Secretary on congratulating Homi. I think it's very comprehensive presentations. But let me put some questions on that. I mean, the way forward that we would like to double that one. Institutions like ADB, for example, we are doing many things. I mean, that we are doing what we call the finance plus. We are not only giving our developing member countries with the financing, but also coming with the knowledge so that they can have a knowledge sharing, as well as leveraging. So I like the way the Homi put it, that perhaps right now is the time for us not to do only the gap filling exercise, but also the leveraging exercise, because that is very crucial for doubling the effort. But to do so, we have to do beyond just the agricultural sectors, because there are many such leverage efforts that we can do if we can, for example, tailoring our program with other sectors. That means also that we will enter the coordinations problem or challenges, because when you do that, you also will deal with a lot of multi-layer coordinations, not only between stakeholders, but also between level of government, between sector and stuff like that. So let me also put a little bit in the context, for example, the reality in Asia, that right now more than half of people living in urban areas. Every day, 120,000 people coming to the city as the new urban citizens. So the reality is the urbanization is there. So I guess that rather than we are trying to detach from this phenomena, I think we have to put it in context. How, for example, urban and rural linkages can be one of the reasons how to develop or how to put some facilities more to the rural transformation, and also in this case, smallholder farmer.
Indeed. And urbanization also leads to financial flows back into farms.
Exactly. For example, the circular migration.
They're not enemies, right? by any means, no. So, Rosangela, can I ask you, please, about your quick reaction to what we heard from Homi Kharas? Do you feel that the goals that he was laying out are realistic in the context in which you work?
Yes. As a rural worker and as a family farmer, everything I've heard here really takes me back to my situation. It's a little distant, of course, but I can relate to that. I think that in order to have access to funding, especially from the private sector, it's absolutely necessary to provide guarantees. This is what I've been able to observe, because the private sector really needs guarantees, and that's why it's so difficult to invest, because they won't come forward without these guarantees. However, I think that if family farmers, because, by the way, we have men and women out there in the rural areas, we mustn't forget the fact that women are around and youths, because it's a patriarchal system. But, women and young people are out there in the rural areas too, and they're working hard. Anyway, I was saying, if these people were enabled to work on their land mainly, and I don't know about the rest of the world, but I can tell you that in Brazil still have a lot of problems having access to land. Agrarian reform, land reform has not made progress to the extent of meeting the needs of the people. So people need to have water, land, access to credits, technical assistance according to the situation. And, these are absolutely necessary ingredients, and they could provide a guarantee to the private sector, and that's exactly what we need, what we seek. This is what farmers want in order to better their station in life, their living conditions. Another point that I think is absolutely necessary is that we can't only think about profit making. We need to think in terms of sustainability, the sustainability of the planet and in the life of our populations.
Rosangela, thank you very much. I'm going to bring Tom Jones into our discussion now. Women's world banking. So you're looking at this very much from a women's point of view. Do you think that this is being addressed enough in terms of how we get to these very ambitious goals?
Absolutely not. I mean, there's definitely a focus and a shift to recognize that women make up a significant portion, the majority of our economy. And informally, we're not recognizing them, that they're a formal contributor to what's taking place. I'd also like to say that I share Homi's frustrations. And in two particular opportunities that we see is that, number one, there's an opportunity, well, government has power, and they have to take advantage of that power and create mandates to make change happen. And I would say that once that takes place, we'll definitely move forward. Well, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Adolfo, I've waited to ask you last because you're from IFAD and you're our hosts. Do you feel excited? Because there was a bit of excitement in what Homi was saying. Do you feel frustrated? Do you feel inspired? Where is IFAD at the moment in terms of trying to shake this whole thing up?
Maybe I feel a combination of all you said. I think Homi's made a couple of very important points. First, he said that we should focus on smallholders as a pathway to rural transformation and as a way to address SDG 2. In itself, this is a very important point, and it's not obvious. So let's not take it for granted. And it gives us a lot of comfort, particularly to IFAD, in terms of what we do. So that's a premise. Second thing he said, we want to double everything, okay, the pace of everything. And here, clearly, money is not enough, at least the public money that we know, the ODA money. So leveraging private finance is going to be the real new game we have to play. And this is the question that we all have, is that how do we attract this private money into this business? The good news is that the private sector has seen the opportunities to work with smallholders in their business model. The bad news is that the amount of risks and transaction costs that are embedded in the context of smallholder is still too high, and they're basically all crammed together at the top of the pyramid rather than the bottom of the pyramid. So the real question is how we take them down the pyramid, these private sectors. And here comes the key point of Homi's intervention, this packaging thing. So he insisted about packaging, and I think this is really where we should focus our attention, because there is a lot of stuff that we have. We have got quite smart in developing financial instruments. We have lines of credit, guarantee funds, matching grants, insurance mechanisms, warehouse receipt systems, remittances. There is a lot of stuff.
So we know what
there.
works.
We know what we have in our toolkits. We know there are different sources of financing. We have public, we have agribusinesses, we have philanthropic, we have the banking sector, we have insurance. Can all this be packaged together so that you address different type of risks for different profiles of clients in a way that you create these synergies, because public, private, communities themselves, and different type of risks. So this packaging is something that hasn't been done, really, because we address these different things separately.
So let me take that point that Adolfo has very nicely made of Homi's start to our morning and put it to all of you. What are the essential ingredients that we need in this package to make sure that we can accelerate the investment and attention in this area? So, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, my question would be, how do we create rewards for the private sector to get involved? Because right now the risk seems to be too high for those rewards to take place. So what can we do to incentivize that in a sustainable way and ongoing?
So that in part is to de-risk or to make smallholder for farmers more attractive in some way as a proposition. Yes? Is that what you're saying? How does one do that? Bambang.
Yes, I'm going to use your lens of practicality here. What is really works on the ground, what really doesn't work on the ground. We are also trying to do our best on the financing modalities, from partial guarantee, giving the wholesale credit, for example. So trying to give some line of credit to the banks so that the banks has more credit that can be tailored to the cycle of the crop, for example. But when we try to upscale that one, this is the real, crucial moments, because it has to be supported by also the government, the public sector. So it's not only that the package that we would like to put on the market, but also the enabling environment is really critical here, so that we can upscale, so that we can get the ownership from all the stakeholders that involve. Right now, for example, the result is still mixed, right? And I would like to hear more, for example, the case from the Africa or Latin America, so that we can also share which one is working and which one doesn't work. Of
I'm
course,
going to bring in a perspective from India, Bambang.
Sure,
and
please.
so from a government point of view, you've worked in the agriculture field for a long time, and now you're the Secretary of the Home Ministry. So what have you seen has worked in terms of the enabling environment that government can provide, and what has not?
I'm a great optimist, and I can say that never ever in the history of mankind we have such a good opportunity as it is now. And this is all because of technology. 10 years back, we couldn't have seen the penetration of mobile telephony in the rural countryside. But today, everyone almost have access to a smartphone. India today has 1 billion mobile phones
and
220 million smartphones.
So just to interrupt, just to be more specific, Secretary Pattanayak, the smartphones will enable the financing opportunities?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
People? Yeah, please.
The brick and mortar architecture of traditional banks could not really go to the countryside, the inaccessible areas, the areas which does not have electricity. But today, with VSAT technology, which is powered by solar energy, you can reach out to the rural countryside. With a point-of-sale machine, you can disperse cash to the person. You can also receive. So the whole array of services which needs to be put in place and which we are doing meticulously. So the enabling environment has to be provided by the government. And that gives the confidence to the private sector to get into that space. And today we are working it out brick by brick. And I would say that we have been very successful. We have been very successful. And once this is done, this is all transformative. Okay. I'm certain nobody is going to feel, will have the fear to go and service these very rural households. So it's all happening in front of us.
So Mr. Pattanayak is an optimist, and he thinks technology will be a great liberator in this area. What do our other panelists believe? Are you equally optimistic that mobile telephony will be transformative? I mean, it's been around for quite a long time now.
But it's growing fast, and the access to the networks are increasing. Women's World Banking does a lot of customer research, and we look at the ability and infrastructure for us to reach those rural clients. And the digital technologies, DFS for us in particular, has been phenomenal in increasing that access. It's something that we can't ignore.
Mm-hmm. Adolfo?
Let's imagine for a second how daunting it can be for a poor rural woman that needs to have some credit or even do a transaction to enter a bank and being asked questions and having to fill a form where you don't know how to read and write and being looked upon with suspicions. And these are very deep-rooted cultural issues and stigmas. Who wants to go in that bank to do this? When in fact, and that's the beauty of this mobile technology, because it's impersonal. So you can do the same thing, access your savings account, do the transaction, access technology information through your mobile phone, wherever you are, in your house. You don't have to get into a bank. There is more mobile accounts these days in Africa than there are bank accounts. Yeah. It's simply just much easier. So this is the best news you have on inclusiveness.
But the finance is not reaching the smallholder farmers in Africa yet.
But
via
the
this
mobile
means,
banking
right?
does.
So what do we need to do to accelerate it, to make it the promise a reality, yes? To make it double and triple and grow tenfold, so that it's not just something we talk about in 10 years' time. Rosangela.
I think that communication, as was rightly said here, and the other elements you touched on are fundamental. But one crucial thing is the creation of public policies that get to the field, that get and reach out to people in order for people to play an important role. We need to have public policies that can transform the life of people, because certain countries have done that, but they have failed, and they say that the fault is that of farmers who don't want to work, really. But we need to make sure that people feel involved. so that in these multi-stakeholder arrangement, organizations and banks, whatever and whoever is involved, there must be a listening exercise, and we need to hear the voice of farmers. They're fundamental to depict reality. I know that another...
Okay, can I just interrupt you for a minute? I get the feeling that you're saying that we don't hear the voice of the farmer enough then. We create these multi-stakeholder organizations, and we're in the process of doing another one here, but the voice of the farmer is not heard. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, organizations are fundamental because, of course, they do provide training and they play a very important public role. But in addition to them, it's important to take into account the know-how of small farmers and smallholders. That is fundamental because it is absolutely relevant when it comes to exchanging with organizations.
Okay, so this is, we're getting to the nub now of how do you make these partnerships work. It's obviously the prize. There is going to be no more new money, as Homi was saying. You need to be able to leverage great pots of private finance in a way that works. So I want to ask you practically, panelists, in your experience, when have you seen public-private partnerships working? What have been the magic ingredients, and when have they not? So that we can then learn from it and scale it up and make sure that we don't just have a scattered approach to this whole area. Who would like to respond to that?
I can say from our personal experience at Women's World Banking, about 5 years ago, we started a private equity fund. So we're a nonprofit organization, but we did this in partnership with development agencies, governments, as well as the private sector. It's a small fund of about $50 million. But the idea was there was a demonstration effect when you had that confidence from all the different parties participating, and you could see the evolution of that investment take place over time, the success of the investments. I think it'll transform the mindsets of the private sector, or at least parts of the private sector, to start doing this as a worthy investment on their own.
So, but what was it that made it successful, do you think? What were the kind of innovative features of it?
Well, I think, when you look at development agencies and you look at governments, you can bring the aspect of success in the past and knowledge to talk about how to talk about risk in particular. I think that was number one. But number two, there was a sentiment of opportunity and hope. And I think leveraging that and turning that into a business concept was a key opportunity for us.
Bambang?
We have one project in Bhutan, for example, the mountain hazelnut. They're trying to connect between the private sectors and also the farmer. And not only they are helping the farmer with the access of finance, but they are also trying to improve the land conditions there. They're trying to plant, for example, 100 million of trees, hazelnut trees, and also guarantee the farmer of a certain price that is very good according to the market. So this is kind of like brokering. Our institution, the MDB, for example, can be a middleman. They're trying to have a honest broker between the private sector and the farmer in these situations. There's another project in Cambodia and India, the SPICE. This is also on the private sectors, on how, for example, the Cambodians farmer, smallholder farmer, can also be participated in the global value chains. In this case, again, the MDB, like us, play as the intermediary of those parties that involve. I think the key here is the trust between the private sector as well as the farmer that can be bridged with certain kind of conditions.
Yes, and I guess trust depends on listening, as
in both sides.
On both sides, as Rosangela was saying. You were nodding just now, Adolfo.
Yes, trust is really one of the key, the glue that will keep this partnership together, because there is a lot of distrust between public, private, and other actors. So one of the things we could do, possibly as public type of intervention, is to organize farmers, organize stakeholders in a way that they can themselves express their voice and have sufficient scale to be able to sit at the same table. And this is something we can do, provide these market opportunities that the private sector is looking for, simply because in a scattered, individualized way, this will simply not happen, and we will be stuck with public-private partnership, and you're not going to be able to bring this fourth P that we in IFAD argue and advocate for, which is really the public-private producer partnership. If the producers are missing from this equation, this is not going to happen, because you have to provide a market opportunities that has a lot of trust in it. And the trust has to be built between farmers' organizations that are capable to dialogue directly with private sector. And the public sector
are you saying it's
plays a role.
vital, therefore, that you do have aggregation, that you do have organizations?
Absolute scale is very important.
Yes. So why is it that here we are in 2017, January 2017, and yet we are talking about it's important that we bring farmers together in organizations? Wherever you look around the world, there are farmer groups, aren't there, of different sorts. And Rosangela represents one of them, and we heard from Mr. Sodu talking about Amul, which is a massive, big cooperative organization in India around milk production. And yet, it's not everywhere, is it? It's still a very small part of the whole smallholder picture. Why? Why is it? How do we make sure that people can aggregate more? Secretary Pattanayak.
Beside the cooperative sector, which India has been very successful in the example of Amul, the milk dairy, we have great examples of private-public partnership in the area of post-harvest handling and marketing. In fact, it's most successful when they provide the linkage to the market. So for that, the enabling environment would be to have a contract act or contract law where the producer as well as the person who links you to the market, they get into an agreement. And that not only provide them markets domestically, but also to the export market. And we have witnessed a lot of success in this area. I can give the prime example of the exports of gherkin from India to Europe. And they're all small and marginal farmers. And this started way back, not now, 20 years back. And we have made a very good success of it. And it all spawned itself by the private sector, and the space was always there. And I can quote examples, but I'm stopping at this. So we can scale it up. That's all.
Thank you very much. So we all have in our back pockets examples of schemes that have worked, right? We're all proud of schemes that we've been involved in one way or the other that have brought people together and transformed lives. So the next question I'm going to ask my panelists is not such a nice question to answer, and that is, what happens when they don't work? What is it that we identify that makes these kind of public-private partnerships, these kind of endeavors, somehow fizzle out or not deliver the promise that we had hoped? We need to learn from the negative just as much from the positive. Which brave person amongst our panelists is likely? Okay, Tom, you're going again.
I'll start, yeah. I think, one, there's a lack of patience in many instances. You know, change takes time. And we
lack of what? Patience?
Lack of patience, yeah. Number two, you know, is something that Homie referenced also, this idea of working in urban centers versus the rural landscapes. And I think a lot of that has to do, particularly in our world where we're dealing with donors and other investors, there's this false expectation around targets. And so we chase the urban centers because it's easy to reach those targets versus going out into the rural spaces. And I think then there's also this lack of understanding of what, you know, farmers actually need. And I agree that we need to have more farmers at the table, better understanding of what their daily needs are, so we're not trying to create a solution that doesn't fit their livelihood. Okay,
so that listening piece that Rosangela said. I'm going to throw it back to you, Rosangela. What is it when you've been involved in projects that have disappointed, that have not delivered what we hoped? What have been the reasons for it?
Bom, assim, os grandes desafios que
Well, we've faced great challenges in projects that have failed. One major challenge is that these projects have been decontextualized from the reality in the field. I mean, if you look at the potential and the abilities of people, you need to contextualize them. A lot of projects have failed because they were simply looked at and devised outside of the everyday reality of people. I know that the market is demanding, but what we need to do today is to take account of local requirements as well. Take climate issues. Sometimes people need to have that addressed, like research and technologies that can take on board the needs of society. And the projects that have failed because these realities were simply not taken into due account.
Okay, so that sounds like your listening point earlier. That's, you know, what people on the ground need is perhaps not the highest priority. Does anyone else want to respond to that point? Yes, Adolfo.
Yeah, so one point is maybe we haven't contextualized enough our intervention in terms of understanding better the needs of the different type of clients. They have very different profiles, and they need to strengthen and build institutions, strong institutions of the poor, contrary to institutions for the poor. We have to really build those it takes time. It's not just money, it's the software. Building those institutions of the poor really will build trust. And rent-seeking happens everywhere, not just in government. Rent-seeking can happen also at the cooperative level, at the community level. So addressing rent-seeking through trust building and strong institution is extremely important.
Okay, so for somebody who is just a humble journalist, what do you mean by that? Rent-seeking happens at all levels. Give me an example, make it tangible.
Elite capture.
Okay.
That happens everywhere.
Okay.
So elite capture is about the strengths of these institutions, how representative they are, and how they reflect the views of the people that they represent and their members.
Okay.
If you have strong institutions that are representative and avoid, to some extent, elite capture, then you can really have a much more cohesive approach to putting people back in the center of our intervention. This is sometimes what we miss. We think we have good ideas, and we go there with our good ideas, but we haven't really turned the table around to allow farmers or groups of beneficiaries to be in the center.
Which is
help
again
them think for us. They should tell us.
Rosangela's point,
needed.
isn't it? Yeah. Now, I'm going to ask you, panelists, before I bring the audience in, a little challenge, which is around advocacy. Yes? Everyone in this room knows that smallholders are very important, and you're here to try and transform the lives of smallholders. But Adolfo said at the very beginning, you know, it's not that obvious that smallholders are very important. And that got me thinking, that's probably right. If we go out into the streets of Rome and we ask people, how important are these small farmers? They'll probably go, sorry, what are you talking about? Give me another cup of coffee. So, my challenge to you is, how can you come up with a little gobbet, a little slogan, a little sticky message that anybody out on the streets of Rome and Europe and the world will remember? Yes, smallholder farmers, they're very important because why should we invest in smallholders? Okay, who's going to give me a slogan? Meantime, all of you are thinking of the questions to put to our panelists, right? Why is investing in smallholder farming so very important? If you don't get that message out, we'll never meet Homi's challenge. Oh, Adolfo. Okay, go for it, Adolfo.
Okay, first message is smallholders will feed you in the future. Okay, so if we hope to be able to feed 9 billion people in 2050, it's not going to happen without the contribution of smallholder farming.
Okay,
That's
so smallholder farming, we need smallholders to feed the world.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait.
No, I'm going to, one sentence I said, okay, Secretary Pattanayak.
So smallholder farmers make or break government.
Oh, wow. But is that true? We've got to make sure that they make or break government. Okay, because they bring votes? Yes?
Democracy, it is important.
Yes. In some countries, they make or break
some
government.
countries.
Okay, who's going to give us the next one? Bambang.
I think smallholder is key for the future generations because they are ensuring our nutrition, for example, that, giving us our daily, food.
It's that food thing, really,
Right.
isn't it? They feed the world, okay? So that's the same message. And linking it to the future and sustainability. Okay, that's another sub-thought. Tom?
No. Right.
Rosangela. Go for it, Rosangela.
Eu tenho lema assim bem.
I have a slogan which is very practical. If the field doesn't cultivate, then there's no food on the table. You see the food here in Rome and everywhere. The food comes from the produce of smallholders that produce 70% of the food in the world. Maybe there, the financial sector could indeed enter into business with us.
Thank you very much. It's the food on your plate. Make it very real. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, I would say that it's a quality of life thing. And it's something that's really resonating in the United States where smallholder farmers are on the rise again. And it goes back to being local and sustainable. Now, I don't know if that can be applicable everywhere, but we're definitely feeling it and we're resonating with it within our households.
Right. So it's something that people can relate to wherever they live in the world. Okay. It's really interesting that nobody mentioned human rights and dignity of people in there. So you're making it very, very real about food, your food, our future generations' survival, and the food on your plate. Get that message out, ladies and gentlemen. Meantime, who'd like to put a question? Tell me who you are, please.
Non, c'est pas une question, c'est une proposition par rapport
For a slogan there,
à la phrase.
smallholders are the future of humanity.
C'est l'avenir de l'humanité. Qu'est-ce que vous en pensez?
Fabulous, fabulous slogan. Brilliant slogan. So let's hear your slogans and let's hear some questions to the panelists. Who's going to put them on the spot about how we create better public-private partnerships?
Hello, I'm Johannes Lin. I'm with Brookings, and I was going to ask Homie, but now that wouldn't have been fair because we're from the same shop. So I'm asking you guys. So, with a slogan, what's the vision we have of agriculture, smallholder agriculture in 2030, 2050? Are they the smallholder, highly mechanized smallholder farmers of the U.S.? We just said U.S. Highly mechanized, or the smallholder farmers highly mechanized in my country of origin in Bavaria. They're not comparable at all with the smallholder farmers we talk about. So what I miss somehow is the link between smallholder farmers today and the vision of what smallholder farmer means in 2050, let's say. Because I think when you try and energize people around the notion that smallholder farmers are the future, they think about modern agriculture where a smallholder farmer actually is not like the smallholder farmer today. So what is your vision of the future for the smallholder farmer?
Thank you. I'm going to slightly refine Johannes' question and say 2030, okay? So what is your vision? What is this? This person we're talking about? What are your hopes? What is your vision for 2030? Secretary Pattanayak.
Well, smallholders farmer today comprise 85% of my country's population in terms of the agricultural space. It's going to rise to 91% in 2030. But I see them as in 2030 or 2050, equipped with all the knowledge of modern technology and managing the push of a button, the agriculture. The days are not very far away. And I'm sure it's going to happen. Whether we like it, we may think they're ancient, they're traditional, they're conservative, they cannot adopt technology, but it's not so. There's going to be a huge difference to smallholders farmers, and they are going to be the edifice for food security.
That's a very optimistic answer. Thank you. Tom, what is your vision for a smallholder female farmer?
Well, what relates to females also relate to males, and I think that's important to recognize. But for us, for me, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's having the appropriate business plan and structure in place that smallholder farmers can utilize within the relevant markets. I think it's having the proper infrastructure and then risk reduction vehicles that are there to protect them against catastrophes.
Okay, so you have the whole setup
That's
built
right.
around them. Let's have another question. Please tell us who you are, sir.
Merci beaucoup, je vais m'exprimer en français.
Thank you very much. I'm going to speak in French if I could. Du Dedemat, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Raising in Burundi. We've concentrated attention on these efforts for smallholders, but I would like us to think about where these smallholders actually work, what their farm is. A smallholder in the industrialized world is not the same thing as a smallholder, small farmer in an emerging country. It's not at all the same thing when you also consider the smallholder in a developing countries. You have to do proper mapping. If we sort of apply the same theory across the board, the concept of development, to those three types of smallholders, it's not going to be a success at all. So let's start understanding these categories of smallholders. Concretely speaking, let me give the example of IFAD activities in Burundi, and this in cooperation with the government. We've been focusing on how to invest in the rural world, because in Burundi, 90% of the population lives in the countryside, in the rural areas, and lives off what they produce. Now, you can't speak about development in Burundi without investing efforts in smallholders. Now, IFAD has understood this, and in its efforts in the country, we first of all got into capacity building, capacity strengthening in cooperatives of smallholders and farmers. And we've noted that contrary to what people ordinarily think, smallholders themselves do have indigenous knowledge to share in the technical sphere, and that is what has really produced spectacular results. But the issue, the problem at stake, is that then the banks come in and they come to invest and to extend credit access to smallholders, and that always leads to the building of walls. So we have to fill that gap or knock down that wall between credit access and production increase. Thank you.
Accès au crédit et augmentation de la production. Merci.
So that's a very important point, which is that the knowledge that's there is then being siloed when the financial institutions come in, with the building of walls. So far from the financial institutions and investment being an enabler, being a leveraging for rural transformation, it's doing the opposite, according to our honourable gentleman from Burundi. So turning that into a pointed question to you, how do you make sure that the walls aren't built? Who would like to respond to that? Bambang.
I think I like the notion of the local wisdom here, because I believe that for the most of the emerging economies, smallholder farmer in the 2030 will combinations between what we call the local wisdom, local knowledge, and also the appropriate technology. I'm not using the word of high technology, but appropriate technology, a technology that's suitable for their social, cultural, and economic situations. And in this case, I think that one lesson learned that we have from our projects is that unless we can unleash all the local wisdom and put them on the combination with the sort of like the new state-of-the-art, the cutting-edge technology, then we cannot success in many of the local situations. So again, this is a key for the success in the future on how, for example, we can marrying the local wisdom, the indigenous, sort of like knowledge, and combine them with the appropriate technology that is suitable for them to thrive for the future.
Okay, Bambang, we've got another question at the back. Please tell us who you are, madam.
I'm Sylvia Paraguya from the one of the Federation of Cooperatives in the Philippines. Let me share with you my vision if I am asked. I would imagine that the farmers would be organized so that they're able to negotiate with government, they're able to link their products to the markets, or even have control over value addition over their products. That would be the situation that the farmers can benefit from their production. My question is, Because when you talk about smallholder farmers, you do not talk about the individuals. It should be the organized groups. Where can we see that in the whole package of financing? Will the financing package include the strengthening of these organizations and the required structures, not just at the base, but even secondary and tertiary level of organization?
That's a great question. Thank you very much, Adolfo.
Exactly, going back to an example. Imagine a smallholder farmer entering a bank and asking for credit. It's quite likely that the bank is going to say, I'm sorry, you're not eligible, risks are too high, transaction costs are too high, you have no credit history, no collateral. We know the story. So first, let's organize these farmers so that they have actually, economy of scale, critical mass, capacity to negotiate. And then instead of going and see the bank directly, what about start by looking at the possibility to enter a value chain, like some agro-businesses. You have a contract. You have a contract with a buyer and a seller and a price. And let's imagine that in addition to this, you're able to put in place some credit, guarantee systems or little insurance schemes, and you have some warehouse receipt systems. And in addition, you may be receiving some remittances in the bank account. And with that package, you go and see the bank. You have a contract, you have remittances, you have some guarantee schemes. I tell you that the bank incentive will change. Their behavior will change. They were going to look at these people with different eyes. All of a sudden, they have become credit-worthy clients. And this is what banks want. It's not the money issue. It's looking for credit-worthy clients where you have been able to de-risk this intervention sufficiently for the bank to be interested. And this is the de-risking and blending and leveraging. It's all combined together so that you can have it for different type of clients, for different type of risks. And maybe this contextualizing the local knowledge, what does the client need, needs to be done really country by country. A smallholder in Brazil is not the same as a smallholder in India. And they need different packages.
Yes,
and
they
may
are
have
huge
50
countries
hectares
with
in Brazil.
Huge variation even within them, don't they? Adolfo, thank you very much. We have another question for you.
Michael Hamp. I'm working in the field of rural finance here in this institution. First of all, I wanted to come back to the slogan. And I think we all have read the background paper by the Brookings. And this says, smallholders can become the stewards of the planet. I think that's a fantastic slogan, and we should further elaborate on that. Which leads me to the point of technology. There was a very strong statement made on ICTs, digital financial services. And don't get me wrong, IFAD signed the membership to the Better Than Cash Alliance already in 2014. So we are a strong promoter of digital financial services, but it's not a panacea. It's not the solution for smallholder farmers only. Because having a mobile phone account does not mean that you're financially included. It does not mean that you get your investment loan for your productive agricultural purposes automatically. So it needs to be related to a savings account, it needs to be related to an insurance account, a simple current account, or even then a loan account.
And do you think that governments, are you saying that the governments should be providing that kit
I haven't come to that point yet. So there is a competition actually going on between the financial service providers and the telecoms. And the telecoms as such are not the solution. How often are we angry with our telecoms because there are some fees, they are hidden somewhere. So how should a not educated, financially educated smallholder farmer deal with all that?
And I'm
so
going
this
to,
leads back to
mind,
the packaging.
Take the mic back from you and put that to all of you as a final question. Thank you very much. How? We have all the promise, we have the technologies, but how do we make it real for the smallholder farmer to actually create the bank account, create the credit history, and get the loans? Who wants to go for it?
I want to react. Actually, we need to invest in a financial literacy awareness program, and this is part of the banking system. In India today, most of the mobile companies and as well as the banks have come together, and they are dispensing. And that calls for the enabling environment by the government. The government needs to mandate that this has to be done. And with the recent experience of demonetization, we have witnessed that there is a tremendous rise in the way the poor people are using digitization. In fact, we have moved to a cashless society. Our aspiration is to slowly move into a cashless society, and the future transactions are going to be that. Apart from that, one big change has come in India. That's providing the unique identity to every individual. So this is a very powerful combination. You have a unique ID, you have the mobile telephony, and you have the bank record. If these three are merged, this is a jam trinity. I mean, we call in local language. This trinity is a very powerful tool. It's like a Swiss knife. It has even it has the torch. It has the FM radio. You can give the advisories. You can check the prevailing market rates. It's a huge tool. Why can't we make use of it? We are trying that and we're doing it. I think I'm not such a pessimist. I will say that we can, in the coming 4 to 5 years, you will find India is a different country altogether.
Well, on that very can-do note, I'm going to draw our panel discussion to a close. Let's all put our hands together to thank the optimists and the pessimists amongst us. Adolfo Brizzi, Secretary Pattanayak, Rosangela Moura, Bambang Susantono, and Tom Jones from the Women's World Bank. I hope it's got your event to an invigorating start. We've talked about the promise ahead, the challenges ahead, the excitement, the potential, but also the realities that you cannot leave the farmer voice out of all this.